Good evening. It is Wednesday, July 9th, and this regular session of the Board of Appeals is now in session. Welcome. Few items on our agenda tonight. The first is approval of minutes from the last two Board of Appeals meetings. I assume folks have had a chance to review those minutes. Is there a motion with respect to the minutes for April 9th first?
I make a motion to accept the minutes for April 9th.
Is there a second?
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for catching that. With respect to the June 11 minutes, which are probably the least detailed minutes in at least my tenure with the Board of Appeals, is there a motion on the floor?
I'll make the motion to approve those minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any abstentions? Actually, let's try this again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Any against? Okay. Motion passes as well. Great. Then let's move into the first of our two public hearings. First hearing is BOA 9967 2024. This is a special exception for housing for the elderly for up to 8 residents at 108 Meem Avenue in the R90 medium density residential zone. Caroline, would you like to introduce?
Yes, you can come up to the table. Good evening, everyone. This is a public hearing on special exception case BOA 9967 2024 for housing for the elderly for up to 8 residents at 108 Meem Avenue. You can see the aerial with the house highlighted in blue. It is on Meem Avenue. Floral Drive is in the foreground, and off of screen would be Chestnut Street. The hearing was published in accordance with the requirements of the city charter and code on the city's website, and the property was properly posted. At the present time, there are 16 exhibits in the record files. They are referenced in an exhibit list in the files. The individual exhibits may be reviewed during the course of the meeting or in the Planning and Code Administration office during regular business hours at City Hall or on the city's website. Any objections to the receipt of any exhibit should be noted prior to the closing of the record. Otherwise, they will be deemed received in evidence. The subject property is zoned R90 medium density residential pursuant to section 24-3.1 of the city zoning ordinance. Housing for the elderly is a special exception use in the R90 zone. The applicant went before the Planning Commission on June 4th, 2025 for a recommendation, and the Planning Commission recommended approval with 4 conditions as included in exhibit number 15. And before I introduce the applicant, I just wanted to mention that there is a request for a parking waiver involved with this special exception. Parking waivers can only be granted by the Planning Commission. But because we did not want for the Planning Commission to be granting a waiver for a special exception that had not yet been approved, should the special exception be approved tonight, the applicant will need to go back to the Planning Commission for the parking waiver after the Board of Appeals approval. So I just wanted to mention that up front. I'll turn the presentation over to the property owner and the applicant, Mr. Ali of Ashir Homes, and I'll take it from here.
Thank you. Mr. Ali, before we begin, can I swear you in as a witness, please? So if you wouldn't mind raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, yes.
Great. Thank you. You may begin.
Good evening. I'm Shafaqat Ali, owner of 108 Meem Avenue, Gaithersburg, applying for a special exception approval. This is a special exception request, meet all the standard set forth in the zoning and ordinance. The proposed use of this property will be consistent with the character of the area without creating any negative impact on the surrounding community or environment. I'm committed to adhering all the conditions, including those related to the noise, traffic, and safety to ensure the continued well-being of the neighborhood and surrounding properties. I respectfully requested the board to approve this application. By the way, I'm successfully managing assisted living in Montgomery County for 12 years in Germantown. So this will be a second home to help the seniors in the community and the county. This is the layout for the parking. This is the actual parking, which was approved by the Board of Appeals. This is a brand-new driveway. We put the fence because one of the neighbors said we need the fence for the privacy, so we installed that too. This is a typical layout for assisted living. Family living. It's like a home. The county or the state encourages the assisted living, for a small assisted living, looks like a house, like a group home. So we did not do much changes inside. As you can see, just typical layout with the attached bathrooms and access for the handicap. And we get approval for the ramp. The ramp will come on the back end. The board, the city of Gator was already approved the ramp for the handicapped people. This is some of the pictures inside the house. And one thing I want to point out that our residents, usually they are wheelchair bound, so they don't drive any cars or need any vehicles. So they'll be not using any parking spaces. Any questions or any inquiries?
That's, anything else from you? No further presentation?
Do we have more slides or that's it, right?
So, I mean, I can pull up any of the exhibits that you want to, if you want to focus on anything else you've submitted, we have.
So this will be like for 8 residents living in 4-bedroom. As I mentioned, they will be not using any parking or need any cars to drive there. We're doing basically the day-to-day activity for the seniors, like helping with the meal preparation, medication management, dressing, and bathing. And we'll have 2 employees, full-time caregivers, helping the seniors. I think that's it.
Okay. Nothing further?
No, I don't have
Great.
much.
We'll start with questions from the board. We'll start here.
Sure.
After you mute.
Mr. Lee, right?
Yes.
Yes. First of all, the house looks beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm assuming that you worked on refurbishing it, and it looks like you did a great job.
Thank you.
Also, I'd just like to state that as a general rule, I am very supportive of enhancing our residents' abilities to stay in the city in good locations, regardless of their age. I do have a few questions.
Sure.
Let's start with parking, and I do. Actually, I have a question for our council first. In this discussion here, I understand a waiver will have to be granted by the Planning Commission, but the question of parking, is that something that we should and could consider as part of this discussion?
Sure, you can consider that. The parking waiver is a separate request.
All right, thank you. Regarding parking, I do understand that the residents themselves are not anticipated to be mobile and driving. Is there a reason, though, based upon the space afforded in the parking driveway? It looks to me like it could accommodate 4 spaces, not necessarily 4 side by side at the end. You've outlined 3, but it looks like there's plenty of space for at least 1 or possibly 2 spaces in kind of a parallel parking configuration. Your thoughts on that, sir?
We did that different flooring, I mean, the parking layout with the city, Caroline, and she thinks this is, because of the restrictions of the width and the length of the cars, this is what they recommended, the city. So, Caroline, you can.
If you would like, I can elaborate. The parking area is not configured like a commercial, in the configuration of the dimensions of a commercial lot. And which is one of the reasons they need a parking waiver for some of the dimensional issues. So, but a housing for the elderly is required to be parked to the dimensions of a commercial lot. We tried a variety of different ways to fit 4 cars on that. It looks like you could, but you really can't, based on the requirements, the drive aisle widths and the requirements of a parking space. And we really couldn't get more than 3 spaces as big as that pad looks, just because of maneuverability issues. So that was the limit.
I think obviously I will rely upon your professional opinion on that one.
But I want to bring that one. I have this similar assisted living in Germantown. We have more than 4 parking spaces, but there is no requirement for ADA parking. But here, cities, or we have to have ADA. So that's one of the reasons I think we have to restrict the parking. Instead of 4, we've gone to 3.
Of course, understood. All right, thank you for outlining that for me. I'd like to move on, though. I understand, and I'm looking at packet page 18, Exhibit 3 AC, where this outlines effectively how your business operates in regards to homes of this type. And specifies that at any given time you may have up to 8 elderly residents and they do not drive, and that you restrict admission to the residents with no vehicles. I understand that's the manner that your business operates today. My concern potentially is that there's no telling how your business operates tomorrow or 5 or 10 years from now. And once the waiver is granted to allow up to 8 residents in the house, how are we certain that those conditions will continue for future residents where they won't be driving and thus won't need the additional spaces?
We can, as I mentioned in the application, we can restrict admission. If somebody is driving, first of all, they don't need assisted living, most probably. And then we can always say, because of the parking issue or because of the city ordinance, we cannot have residents parking on the property. It's a possibility.
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Questions?
My questions were only around 2. The ramp that you
Yes.
you had talked about, has that already been
Approved? Yes.
it's been approved, but it hasn't been installed yet?
Correct. No, not yet.
Okay, and I guess you're waiting upon these
Final, yes.
finalities to be able to install that. And then just in the question around the parking again, if visitors were to come, and I see that visiting hours from 8 to 6 p.m., it's if they're, let's say, I don't know, all four spaces were to be used, there's adequate parking in the surrounding areas for
Yes,
folks to be
yes.
able to enter. Okay, those are the questions I had for you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
I have no questions.
Mr. Ali, this would be your second
Correct.
facility. Can you talk a little bit about the one in Germantown? How many residents?
8 residents.
8 residents.
Yes.
So similar size, bigger,
Similar
smaller?
size.
Okay.
Similar size. Running that business for 12 years.
Yeah. And you mentioned the parking requirements are different. What are the parking requirements, just in general?
There is no ADA requirement on the property, so we have 4 spaces.
4
Similar,
spaces?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no issues.
And can you describe generally how those spaces are used? Are they, on a day-to-day? Are they
The parking?
all full, half full? Kind of what's sort of the?
You can say 50% full, usually on the weekend, family members visiting them. But not 100%. Once in a while, if there is somebody's birthday, family and kids are coming to see them.
Yep.
Otherwise, not an issue. We never had any issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have the same staffing levels?
Yes.
In Germantown?
Yes.
Has there been any, for lack of a better term, disruption or any issue with the neighborhood in Germantown?
No.
With the,
No.
okay.
I mean, if somebody's operating if that long, if there is a disturbance,
Yep.
it will not go that long.
Right. You said 12 years.
Yes.
Yeah. What brought you to open one in Gaithersburg?
A couple of my new residents in Germantown, they used to live in Chestnut, and I was looking to expand anyway, so they told it's a big senior community in Gaithersburg, Old Town. I didn't realize this property was in historic district. I would have not purchased it to start with, but he told me there is a big demand. And it's needed, small group home kind of. City has big Ashbury and Sunrise and all that, but something like this is needed there. Then I start looking, and 2 of my existing residents, they're willing to move back to 108 Meem Avenue once it's all done. They're very curious.
So 2 out of the 8 that
Yes.
are currently in Germantown
Yes.
would come to Gaithersburg.
Yes.
Do you have commitments for the other spots, or is that something that you haven't?
No, I mean, eventually it will get full, but the 2 at least I know,
Yeah.
they're very waiting on that final licensing.
Got it. When you talked about staffing, it says 2 employees alternate shift. Does that mean I'll simplify, 2 people during the day and 2 people at night, or there's 1 person during the day, 1 person at
One
night?
person
How's
in
that?
the night, usually, yeah.
Uh-huh. And how many during the day?
I'm sorry?
How many during the day?
During the 2,
2 during
Yeah.
the day and 1 at night.
and then the night.
Got it. And what are sort of the hours of those shifts?
Usually from morning to evening, like from 6 to 6 or 10 hours a shift, basically.
Got it.
Yeah.
Great. What about any, for lack of a better term, other commercial? I imagine sometimes, unfortunately, there's ambulatory activity at an assisted living facility. What other kind of commercial activity do you have?
That's
Caterers
it. I mean,
or-
usually that's the only thing.
Yeah.
There is no other commercial comes.
Yeah.
So once in a while we get like X-ray or somebody like portable, but they're like regular cars. They don't need big cars.
Got
They
it.
come and do the X-rays. That's it.
Got it. Okay. Any additional questions?
Actually, yeah. And then just for, you stated that the residents that will be living there are mostly wheelchair bound.
Yes.
Are the bedrooms on the first floor or they're up on the secondary level?
Both floors.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I assume the ADA requirements?
Yes,
For
it's all
those have
met,
already
yeah,
been
yeah.
approved? Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions from the board? No? Okay. Is there any members of the public that would like to testify with respect to this matter? Yes? No? Yes? Just one?
You want me to?
If you could come up, I could just swear you in.
I'm Greg Zitz. There's a few pictures here. Is there any? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just let me swear you in as a witness
Absolutely,
first. That's okay.
absolutely.
Right hand up, please. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. Can you identify yourself?
I'm Greg Zetz. I live at 113 Meem Avenue. So I'm right across the street from the house. Been there since 1998. There's no pictures of the bathrooms in this presentation. Is there any pictures?
I didn't take it.
There's no pictures of the bathroom?
No.
Okay. I don't know. I have a lot of concerns. Traffic. We have a lot of cars on our street already. The city's trying to, deal with that. I have a lot of concerns of the future. The Historic Committee approved of this, but I feel after being here over 25 years and have had to have the approval of the Historic Committee, there's been some compromises in that. A historic house that's 100 years old has been transformed into a possible nursing home. And what's next? That's the question I want to ask is what's next? Someone buys a house and we want to have a halfway house there. We want to have a drug rehab. I've been in ministry for almost 40 years. I'm a police chaplain as well. So I have a great compassion for people that need help for sure. But I just want us to think a little bit about what would be next. What are we going to approve next? It's one of two historic sites. I appreciate this man. I've ministered in India many times as a pastor. I have nothing against him. But my challenge, I guess, that I just want to vocalize is really think, do we really care about the historic district? Or is it just we're bypassing and doing what we want? And I just have some concerns about that. And I would like you to look at the bathrooms too. I think that's an important part of this presentation that's not present. And anyway, that's all I want to say. Okay.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Any further testimony from the public? Yes? Come on up. Well, the gentleman in the back, will you also be testifying?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're together.
You're-
I'm
okay.
not sure if he wants to come up. We'll see.
Your right hand, please.
Sorry.
In fact, gentleman in the back, if you could just stand and I could swear you in now, and just in case you want to testify later. For both of you, do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
So
If you could
my
identify
name
yourself,
is-
please.
My name is Christine Fritchlansky. I actually live at 106 Meem. I live next door. I know that at the June 4th meeting, Hector was there and he was asking about the other side of the property because only the one side is shown with the parking lot. The other side has not been touched. There's still no fence there. The tree is still standing, so we're just wondering what is happening with that as well in regards to his presentation. The other thing that I was wondering, and it just came into my head with regards to commercial vehicles, I was wondering food supply services as well. That's going to involve traffic coming in and out. The other thing is if staff is in the property and there are 3 spaces in the lot, where does the staff park? Is the staff and the visitors parking the same? Does somebody park in the street? Those were my questions.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just the what she pretty much.
Please
You
come
have to come
forward
up so we
and
can get it
identify
recorded.
yourself.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Well, thank you guys for listening and appreciate you guys for what you guys doing.
Can you please?
My main concern.
Please,
State
before you
your
speak,
name.
just identify yourself, please.
Oh, my name is Hector Hernandez, though. So my main concern is liability of the tree. It hasn't been attended. Tree is dead. Is leaning towards the sides of our house. actually in our driveway. We've been trying to accommodate as far as we can from the tree. That is the one thing that I want to be sure that gets, talk about immediately. Because as Christy mentioned it's all the pictures of what is need to be seen. So I do feel like it is, I do have some pictures of the side of my house if you guys like to see it, but I like just to have some answers immediately about the tree, because that could cause power lines, the integrity of the house, or any of our cars, or safety from anybody though. So that's the only thing I'd like to add to it. Right on. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Any further testimony from the public? More people keep showing up. Come on. Yeah, come to the front and I'll swear you in.
Khurshid Bilgrami.
Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Great, thank you. And your name?
My name is Khurshid Bilgrami, resident of Gaithersburg. I live in Cypress Run, and I happen to be cousin of Ali. And the drawings that you saw was prepared by me. Been with Montgomery County since past 22 years. Worked for State Highway Administration for 9.5 years. So the questions about traffic on the street, being a traffic engineer for Montgomery County for 20 years, there's no traffic on the street. It's a dead end, but it leads to 117. There is no cut through traffic. And traffic for that kind of a street is at least, if you say high traffic, it has to be like 200 vehicles during the rush hour. There's nothing like that. That's number one. Number two, the parking spaces. We discussed about the parking part, which I designed, the drawing I prepared. There are 4 spaces that can be easily accommodated, but the requirements were given. So one of the parking space shall be handicapped. For that reason, the pull-out area and all that, so it didn't meet the criteria. So I could only fit 3 parkings for that. Now, bear in mind that this street has a permit parking. So my cousin, Ali, owner of the property, is entitled to apply for a permit with the city, as everybody else who lives on the street does. And then his property frontage is like 5 cars. And street parking is allowed by the city because there is signs posted which indicates permit parking. So obviously city is issuing the permit parking. There is a permit parking program. So you need to consider those parking spaces that are available to this property as well. That's all, man. And then about the inside, whether it's handicap accessible or not, that is determined by the licensing agency when, whether it has a fire alarm or if it is handicap accessible or not. All those things will be addressed, and nobody's going to issue a license without going through all those details. And by the way, all the modifications are done, all the bathrooms are handicap accessible. And then he's going to have a chair lift to go from one floor to another, and that's exactly how the Germantown facility is operating. Yeah. We are well aware of the ADA requirements. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I'll ask one more time. Any additional public testimony?
But before, I just wanted
Sorry?
to, just to open the room for anyone online who wants to make public testimony.
We don't take online testimony. with
Oh, we
Board of
don't.
Board of
Appeals.
Appeals.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Raised, addressed. Thank you. Based on the additional public testimony we just heard, I want to give the board an additional chance to ask questions if there are any that have come up. So any additional questions you'd like to ask?
I would like to ask Mr. Lee, there was some discussion earlier about commercial vehicles and that type of usage that's going to be going into the space. Could you talk a little bit about that, specifically with supplies that may need to be delivered or food or such? What does that look like at your existing location?
So we don't get food from outside. This is considered this like a home, group home. Everything is prepared in the house. There is no commercial vehicles coming in. All we get is the groceries from Walmart or Costco. That's it.
how about, and I do understand from the packet that on the whole, the resident's family will be picking them up to take them to doctor's visits and such. Do sometimes doctors come to visit the house directly?
Yes. We have doctors on staff. They come and visit, not like every 45 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not a constant thing, but
No.
but on a periodic basis, there will be
Yes.
additional traffic due to some doctors visiting.
Yes. Yes.
That's it. Thank you.
Great. Additional questions?
I have a question for staff. As far as applying for permits for parking, is there a limitation as to how many a homeowner can receive?
So the city has a new parking permit requirement in that area, and I believe that you can get 2 parking permits per
House.
house.
Okay. Thank you.
And then the rest of the parking on the street, I believe it's limited to 2-hour parking for visitor parking. So if all the spaces in their parking area were full and there were a visitor, that they could still use the on-street parking, just limited to 2 hours.
Actually, I do have a question for staff too. I'm assuming, but I'd like you to confirm or reject my assumption, that questions about the ADA compliance, bathrooms, the tree that may or may not need to be addressed, other things like that, would be attended to by the Planning Commission and is outside of our purview for this question, right?
Well, I'll let Carolyn identify how it would be addressed, but generally they would be addressed through the normal permitting process. Certainly the ADA is going to be was noted as part of the licensing, but would also be part of it where changes are made of what the city also approves.
And what we're looking at here specifically, our question, is the approved usage of the plot of land.
You're right.
Not so much how it's going to be arranged.
Or the specific building code questions.
Thank you.
Certainly if there is an issue with a tree needing to be addressed, there's an enforcement process in that regard too.
Thank you.
You are looking at compatibility with the neighborhood more so than the interior spaces are going to be reviewed through a permit process and through a state licensing process, and really is not something that the Board of Appeals can weigh in on. So the photographs are helpful to inform you of what it looks like, but as far as you regulating whether the bathrooms are ADA compatible or compliant, and you don't have the ability to really review that.
I appreciate the clarification.
The fence along a property line could possibly go towards compatibility with the neighbors. So that is something you might, that would be within your purview to discuss.
Which actually gets to my question. Can you pull up any of the external pictures that show us fencing?
Do you have one of those photographs on your?
This is on one of the other side of the property we put that. I don't know I have anything for my other neighbor. Oh, it's right here. You can see on the right side.
So before you get to that, so the fence that we just saw
Yeah,
in this picture is going to be over there on the left.
this on this side. Yeah, left.
Yeah, right. And, well, why don't we just go through the whole thing? So we saw what that looks like on that side. Does that fence continue to the back of the property?
Yes.
And then what does the fence look like on the back of the property?
It's a fence also, chain fence.
Chain fence?
Yeah.
And that's, if I recall correctly, CSX right
Yes,
away
yes,
behind? Okay.
yes.
Fence on the other side?
There is some chain fence, but it's broken, I think. It was there, I don't know, previously. I don't know how long ago.
So one side of the property has, and can you show that one picture again of the lot?
Probably The one at the backyard.
This one?
Yeah, yeah. So this is what it looks like on one side of the property.
Yes.
Chain link fence on the back.
Correct.
The other side of the property that faces this is also a chain link fence?
Can I speak? I'm the neighbor on that side.
Hold on one second. Happy to bring you up in a second. Just want to get his.
The other side is maybe 5 feet or 10 feet chain fence, but there is nothing else all the way.
So there's no fencing on that other side?
Correct.
Just some portion?
Some
of
portion
chain.
broken, yeah.
Got it, okay.
And I did talk to the neighbor who testified, and we talked that
Yeah.
we can split the cost. He himself in construction, he told yes, we can put something together.
Put something together like,
Fence,
yeah.
yeah.
What do you have intended?
Same fence, the one I have like board on board.
So the same fence that's on
Will go on that
what we
side.
described as the left side, you'll do the same, you're
On
gonna do
the right
same
side.
thing on the right side
Yeah.
for the full duration
It's like
of the
more
property.
symmetric, looks nicer, yeah.
And what's the timing of that? When would you intend to do that?
We can do it next week. I have no restriction, as long as
Okay.
city approves, the sooner the better.
I just want to know, any fences or anything, say, will have to go through a permit process?
Yep.
Which we have to go
Yep.
hop.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the intent, through the proper process,
Yes.
is to do something that
We
matches
can, I mean,
roughly what's on the
yeah,
other side.
I'm all for securing, fencing, making beautification.
Okay,
I'm all up for that.
okay. And can we see the
Front.
front side picture again?
So the
There was-
fence is on this side where the car is
Right.
parked, existing one.
There was another question that came up with respect to a tree that was of issue. Where is that tree?
Tree is right in front here. It's a dead tree. And I did talk to the city, Kate, a couple of days back. Do I need permit? Because I know it's close to the power line. She told me if you're cutting all the way, you need permit. If you're trimming, so the power line and the neighbors, you don't need it. So she told me to go ahead and do it. So I'm going to do that. I
You're
mean,
going
it's,
to do what?
trim so that there is no power line or the neighbors is going.
Okay.
It's a very big tree.
Okay.
I have pictures on my cell phone. If you want to see, I can show you there.
It's a big tree in the front. It's just
Front,
out of the,
yes.
out of the frame.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
It's dead.
Yep. Understood. So if it's dead, why trim and not tear it out or tear it down to a stump?
I mean, if they agreed on streaming permit soon, I can tear it down. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we can have someone from the city come and take a look at it and determine whether it needs to come down or not. If it's a hazard, then
Yep.
the city would determine that it has to come down.
Got it. Good. Further questions from the board?
One question about the existing fence on the right side. The existing fence on the right side, you indicated was partially chain link, partially broken, and then nothing for the rest of the space.
Correct.
And that was existing before you purchased the property?
Correct.
Okay. That's my only question. Thank you.
Sure.
Further? Any other questions? Okay, it seems like we've got another member of the public who hasn't yet spoken.
Yeah.
Correct. Right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And can you identify yourself, please?
Mandy Tumulty. I'm the neighbor at 110 Meem, and the board-on-board fence is next to my property.
Okay, so if we're looking on this, you're,
Right.
yeah, okay.
So I just want to backtrack, and I don't think we have those visuals, but obviously this has been a multi-stage process. Ali and his team presented a design to the historic district that did include a fence. There was discussion, and as we see the approval for the board-on-board fence, which is part of the historic guidelines, there are 2 or 3 different types of fences that are only approved. Because of the driveway and the parking pad, that discussion landed on the decision to have the fence and shrubbery. Now, I don't think the full shrubbery has all been added yet, but that was part of that discussion. They did have a design that was proposed. I'm not sure if it was the full board-on-board that went around the full perimeter. However, being that we're right up against the train goes by very frequently. It's very loud. These are elderly residents. the concern that Hector and family brought up at a previous meeting regarding having the full fence perimeter and that Ali is amendable to do makes a lot of sense for the safety of the residents, for the look of the historic community, and for it all being, uniform. What exists in the very back is part of the chain link that was previously, the previous owners had a portion because they had a pool. That has not been removed. There's not a full chain link in the back. And then what Hector is mentioning is a very old, as Ali mentioned, barrier. It is not a true fence. And so the idea, in my opinion, to have a uniform board-on-board that is approved by the historic district permitting process makes a lot of sense for the tone and tenor of the look of the historic district as well as the safety of these residents. One additional point that, again, Ali's, I believe, design did have, they suggested, I think it was more decorative kind of front fence, and Hector had mentioned at a previous meeting that he's concerned about elderly residents, though they will be supervised, wandering, as we, if any of us have had elderly residents, relatives, we know that could be a possibility, even if they are supervised. But if we're thinking about safety, then Ali's team mentioned that they were amendable to having something that did create a safety barrier. And so that, I think in the last conversation, of course, brought up the point that that would need to go back to the historic district with a proposal to get approved. But I think having that in this conversation based on what was brought up, kind of helps to paint the picture from a safety and design uniformity kind of thing. So I think there's the back portion, which is 5 feet board on board, and then the front would be more something that now I don't think we see as commonly in the historic district, but maybe there would be some kind of exception for the safety of the residents, or maybe something that would just be by something that would enclose them, even if it wouldn't take up the full front yard.
Great.
But that's everything.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thanks.
I'm going to make one more call for public testimony if anybody has not spoken that wants to. We're good. Okay. Any additional questions from the board? Okay. Is there a motion to close the record?
I will motion to close the record in regards to, I don't have the right,
I think you can just move to close the record.
I'll move to close the record.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We've closed the record. This opens up an opportunity for the board to discuss what we've heard and to review the resolution that was drafted in advance of the meeting. It's important for us, you did a good job of sort of helping to kind of clarify what is our purview, what's the scope of what we are reviewing with respect to the special exception, and that's laid out, as we know, in the various decision criteria in the code. We've had reference to many of these things with respect to sort of objectionable noise, compatibility with population density, adverse impact with health, safety, welfare, et cetera. And those are the considerations that we should be taking up in this conversation. So we'll start, as we did in the same order we did with questions. We start with your thoughts on the matter.
Overall, I'm supportive. Just kind of general overarching statement. I do have a couple of concerns, some of which I think that we may be able to overcome with stipulations. For instance, question about the parking is still kind of open, but there is the permitted parking spaces available up to 2. Potentially, we could have a stipulation that requires the purchase of those 2 permits for the property to overcome some of the questions about parking. The main area, though, that I kind of battle over in my mind is the question of how we're talking about the property being used based upon the business model and how that may change in the future. After we give those approvals, businesses change and the specifics of how businesses operate change, which just opens up concern that I'm considering. Because we provide a exception to allow more than a normal number of non-related residents into the property and less parking spaces than may normally be suggested for that number of residents. I don't have a concern about commercial traffic or the property itself really creating a traffic problem overall, based upon the nature of the street and the location and such. But really just kind of some latent thoughts about the usage of the property as planned versus how it could change in 5 or 10 years, combined with the parking question, which once again, like I said, perhaps if we consider a stipulation requiring the purchase of those street permits, maybe that overcomes that.
Great.
In looking at all of the aspects that we have to consider, being the Board of Appeals, for the actual residents in question, I guess I find it hard in my thinking to see how the property does not adhere to those requirements that are laid out. I do agree around with the parking, so that can be a moot point, that the permits, be purchased and for us to include that stipulation. I think the other aspects of it is that, outside of just us being able to approve it being located in the historic district and the historic district having to also approve it as far as the reconstruction and all of the different changes that were made to the exterior, to me, that part has already been settled to a certain degree. But basically, I think that it meets all of our requirements and should move forward.
Okay. John?
Yes, I agree. I'm supportive of this application, and I find that actually the 4 conditions that are suggested by staff and recommended by the Planning Commission do actually speak to a lot of the concerns that have been brought up today. So I think we should move forward.
Going last, you always end up echoing what other people have said. So I will say, in looking through the conditions and thinking about the conversations we've had, I agree. With respect to finding, from my perspective, that the evidence supports that there's no objectionable noise, vibrations, fumes, odors, dust, toxicity, glare, physical activity, remains compatible with the population density, design, scale, etc., as listed in sub 4 of the code section. It's consistent, as we know, with the master plan, will not adversely affect the health, safety, or general welfare of the surrounding community, be served by adequate public services and facilities, and have suitable. Actually, there's the question, right? So when located in a residential zone, have the exterior appearance of residential buildings and shall have suitable landscaping, screening, or fencing. And there's been discussion today about that landscaping and fencing. So question then for staff or council. As we've established, a lot of that has to go through Historic Commission in particular. What is the limit of what we could, so let's say, for example, we agreed that three-way surrounding fencing consistent with the existing fencing on the left side of the property is what we would think, we're not the historic commission, but what we would think would be acceptable for protection and for design and for aesthetics, et cetera. Is that something we can add as a condition, but where does the historic commission come in?
I think you could have a condition that the applicant provide additional fencing without being very specific, because that would be up to the Historic District Commission to approve. If something were to occur where they could not get the approval for additional fencing, they always have the ability to come back to the Board of Appeals to either change the condition, remove a condition. I mean, there's always an opportunity to come back.
Not
But
to
if you-
interrupt, but you could also impose the condition, but make it self-conditioned on obtaining
Right.
historic district, basically a historic area work permit from the Historic District Commission.
Right.
So you could build in that condition as well, both requiring it, but also not requiring that whatever is put in does have HDC approval. It's not that the commission would be unlikely to approve it, but that the fence would meet with what the requirements are for their approval is what you would be building into that condition.
Right, so just so I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. We could add a condition that you'll draft that would require sort of surrounding fencing on the three parts, not other than the front, consistent with the existing fence and as approved by the Historic Commission. Okay, great. To me, that is the one issue that I have going into our consideration of this matter. The parking, to me, I feel like has been addressed by the Planning Commission, right, and by the parking waiver that would then be applied for, and is already baked in. And then otherwise, it sounds like the rest of us tend to agree that the rest of the conditions in the scope review are met. Is that accurate? What I'd like to then suggest, does anybody have any objection that when we put a motion forward on this, that we make reference to the fifth condition that we've sort of talked about with respect to fencing? Is there any objection to that condition being voted on?
I'm not sure I agree with that fifth condition.
Okay, well, great. Then say your piece.
Absolutely. It appears to me that the idea of fencing is desired as an upgrade to the property, and the surrounding properties don't necessarily have fencing of that nature. And I'm not saying it's a bad upgrade. I think it looks. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. And I'm a big supporter of fencing. They make good neighbors. That's what they say, right? But as a matter of a requirement from us, I'm not sure I feel comfortable requiring an upgrade based on what we are bound to work with, which in this case would be, I guess it would be would be compatible with population density, design, scale, and
Also number 8.
and thank you. That's the one I was looking for. Except it was cut off on my page, which is why I couldn't read it. But basically that it supports the same exterior appearance as the other residential buildings in the area. I'm not certain that I'm comfortable with the idea that requiring that fencing makes it come into conformity with the other residential buildings already in existence in the area, regardless of whether or not I think it's a good idea or a bad idea. Because of that, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with requiring that the fencing is there. If the Historic Commission feels that it's important, then that is entirely within their power to do so.
We're still in discussion.
Yeah.
Can't ask.
Yeah, we're still in discussion. Yeah.
And I guess in the discussion with the neighbors coming up, and then also Mr. Lee stating, and I'm sorry if I misquote you, Mr. Lee, about I guess not being amenable to installing said fence, right? And I guess in approval of this piece, we all like to keep our neighbors happy, because that's very important. And I feel like, I guess if the historic district has already approved that one set, and if Mr. Ali is amenable to installing the rest of the fencing, then we can make it a stipulation. But I'm feeling torn about making it a requirement.
Sure.
Per se, because it's still a decision that's still out. Is in essence, we can make it a requirement. It's still a decision to be approved by another body. On top of it, but I guess I'm feeling not strongly about making it a stipulation. But I guess the stipulation in that you return back to the historic district for approval of can we say things that satisfy your neighbors or being a good neighbor? I don't think that's within our purview, but yeah, I guess making a requirement is making it a requirement will ensure that it's done, from that perspective. With it, yeah, those are my thoughts with it. I think since the existing fence is already in accordance of what they said, it's hard to predict, like, what are they going to have an issue with another 20 feet of the same type of fencing. It'd be different if he's saying, well, we're not going to do that. We're just going to put the chain link fence around the rest of the property and call it a day. And as staff pointed out, any issues with the trees and that matter can be taken care of by those departments. I still feel like that it meets the other requirements. I think we still, of course, put in the stipulation that it returns back to the historic district for that decision, of the standpoint of what fencing makes sense, in accordance of how he plans to run the business. But I still feel like it meets our other conditions for approval.
So we have a couple of options, I think, in response to that.
Yes.
I think one is to vote on resolution with the 4 conditions as exist.
Yes.
Another is to vote on the resolution with those 4 conditions, and then a 5th broadly drafted condition. We could also, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, separate it out and approve the vote on the resolution with the 4 conditions, and then have another discussion about the 5th, and sort of vote on that separately.
Generally, for approval of a special exception, it would really call for one motion.
Do it all
You're
together.
really not looking at two
Do it all
different
Okay.
issues. How that condition is worded,
Yep.
it can be, as I had suggested before, it can be a requirement, but you can condition that requirement on HTC approval, and the HTC approval wouldn't, given their standards, they would ensure that it's appropriate, that it is compatible, and that whether they allow the extension of the one that was already approved or not, that may be logical. That will depend on their discussion as to what direction they move in.
Got it.
I just want to clarify
does
what
make
that
it
is.
easier.
So the idea there would be that we approve it with a condition that it goes back to the Historic Commission to review the addition of a property surrounding fence.
The condition would essentially require the applicant to submit an application to the HDC, so they would have to come up with propose a specific fence. It may be the same thing, but that would be on the applicant to do that and then seek Historic District Commission approval for what is the historic area work permit
Yep.
to allow it to be built.
And if the Historic Commission rejected the fence for whatever reason, would that mean that this entire thing in turn was
It's nullified.
rejected? Or did the applicant suffice the requirement by submitting to the Historic Commission?
The requirement I'm suggesting is the requirement that it be submitted and subject to that approval such that if the HCC does approve it, that it should then proceed because the condition should be satisfied then by being built. If HCC didn't approve it, again, it's not impossible that the commission would deny it. More typically, there would be a conversation over what exactly is going to go there, and it may end up changing it. So by conditioning it on their approval, you're essentially conditioning it on what the design actually will be that they do approve. So more than likely, you will be getting a fence there. Will it be the same one? It might. That seems logical. We'll see how the HCC covers it, because there may be a matter of how far does the fence come to the front. They would be looking at what happens within the neighborhood, what are the other fences there,
Right.
Yep.
and certainly taking account of public comment for that as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And that would have to happen anyway if he was going to put in additional fencing. Regardless if we made it a stipulation.
Oh, even if
that
you
would have
required
that
it, would have to,
require.
but making it conditional avoids a potential conflict of saying, well, we said you had to, and then this happened.
I see.
It allows for a bit of a smooth process, if you will.
Okay.
That I could get behind.
Yes.
As long as we're not writing it.
Well, it puts it in the proper hands of the
Right.
body that has to approve it, which isn't necessarily us, but
Yeah.
we condition that he has to go through that body.
Okay.
Well, I can get behind that as well.
Any further discussion before we go into a motion to
John?
approve or deny the application resolution?
So I don't feel that strongly about the fence.
Yep.
However, I would support the fifth condition provided that, and it sounds like the applicant's amenable to the fifth condition.
Yep.
Provided that, that if the HDC did not approve the fence, that it did not have to come back here. In
Right.
other words, the approval is still valid
Right.
for the special
Right.
exception.
We're sort of delegating that final decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you like a suggested condition? Because I don't think you can go to make a motion without actually having
Oh, I thought we kind of sort of
a
done that in the
condition
past,
that you're
but I'll-
voting
I'll-
on.
Do you have some thoughts on that?
What I would propose, if you want to write it in a way that it doesn't come back here, would be to say applicant to submit an application to the Historic District Commission for additional fencing on 3 sides of the property. So that only requires the applicant to submit the application, but then leaves it in the hands of the Historic District Commission. What that doesn't do, however, depending on what you prefer, is require the applicant to obtain a permit for said fencing. So that we could also add that, or if you find
And
it
you could
sufficient that
simply
they
say,
submit it.
and if approved, then to obtain
Right. And for approved,
Right.
yeah.
appropriate permitting and proceed with installation.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like that, obtain permit and proceed with installation, yeah.
Right. Okay.
That's why we have lawyers.
Is there
It's true.
is there a motion to approve or deny the application resolution?
Can we write this one?
Yeah, but I can make it easier for you,
Thank you.
and then just adapt around here.
I make a motion that the Board of Appeals, based on the findings and conclusions outlined in the draft resolution, approve special exception BOA 9967-2024 and adopt resolution BOA 9967-2024 with the 5 conditions as presented.
Is there a second?
Second that motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions?
That
The
you-
motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. There's a minor typo in condition 4.
Okay, I'll take a look.
There's not an 8.
Okay.
Great.
Great. That gets us to the second public hearing. This is on BOA 10045-2025. This is another special exception, in this case for a rooftop telecommunications facility at 177 Kentlands Boulevard in the MXD mixed-use development zone. Would you like to introduce the matter, please?
This is a public hearing on special exception case BOA 10045-2025 for a rooftop telecommunications facility at 177 Kentlands Boulevard. Corinne, if you can pull up your presentation, I have an aerial there. There we go. This is 177 Kentlands Boulevard, which is in the foreground is Kentlands Boulevard. On the left side of the property is Market Street, and to the right is an unnamed driveway and parking in the rear. The hearing was published in accordance with the requirements of the city charter and code on the city's website, and the property was properly posted. At the present time, there are 9 exhibits in the record file. They are referenced in an exhibit list in the files. The individual exhibits may be reviewed during the course of the meeting or in the Planning and Code Administration Office during regular business hours at City Hall or on the city's website. Any objections to the receipt of any exhibit should be noted prior to the closing of the record, otherwise they will be deemed received in evidence. The subject property is owned MXD Mixed-Use Development pursuant to Section 24-4.1 of the City Zoning Ordinance. Telecommunications facilities are a special exception use in the R90 zone. The applicant went before the Planning Commission on July 2nd, 2025 for a recommendation. The Planning Commission recommended approval with 4 conditions as included in Exhibit 8. And I'm going to turn it over to Corinne Smallwood of Network Building and Consulting, who is here representing the carrier, which is T-Mobile.
Thank you, Caroline. Hi, good evening.
Hi. Am I correct to assume you are not a lawyer representing the petitioner?
That's correct.
Okay, then I'll need to swear you in. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you. Please identify yourself and begin.
My name is Corinne Smallwood. I'm here with Network Building and Consulting on behalf of T-Mobile. And I do have a brief presentation here this evening to explain the proposed scope of the telecommunications facility at 177 Kentlands Boulevard. The scope of work for this project is T-Mobile is requesting a special exception relief pursuant to code to install a rooftop telecommunications facility to enhance the wireless coverage and capacity in the area. This is due to increased demand for T-Mobile customers in the area. The proposed facility would contain 9 proposed antennas and additional ancillary equipment within 2 concealment structures on the rooftop of the building. Some background of the project. T-Mobile has designed this facility to integrate with the existing infrastructure of the building. The 2 proposed concealment structures will house all of the telecommunication equipment and are aesthetically matched to align with the building and the other buildings in the area. The installation will benefit the residents, businesses, and emergency services within Gaithersburg. I do have some coverage maps as well to highlight the coverage being gained from the proposed installation. In this case, particularly, the project, there are some uncovered gaps that this facility would help with, but it is also helping with the capacity need for the area. Based on the satisfaction of the criteria and conditions, the proposed telecommunications facility for T-Mobile would be in harmony with the intent and purpose of the zoning regulations. This is a photo simulation of what one of the proposed stealth structures would look like on the rooftop of the building. I do have a few other photo simulations as well further along in the presentation. This is the current coverage map of the area without the proposed T-Mobile site. In this case, we call the site WAN 712C. So I'm going to go next, and then I'll go back to kind of show a little bit of a comparison. This next slide shows with 712C. So one more time. Without, you can see the coverage gap there. With the dark green is showing the increase in coverage in that area. This is an overview of the parcel of the building, showing the proposed facility a little closer in. We have 2 proposed structures. The bigger structure here is housing 2 sectors of antennas, so it will be having 6 antennas, and then the upper structure will have 3. Here's an elevation view. And then I have some photo simulations from these different viewpoints in the area. Here's our first, this is the existing view of the view from, southeast, showing the existing. And here's the proposed. Here's the existing view from northwest. Here would be the proposed. Existing view from southeast and the proposed. So the structures are built to act almost as if like a penthouse of the existing building. And then this, it's not visible from this point of the southwest view. And that is all I have. Are there any questions at this time?
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
To her point, questions?
Just one. In fact, it's I think it's a southeast view that's showing on the screen right now. I mean, it's hard to see, but kind of to the upper right-hand side of the box you're building, what is that white line?
So I do have the stall structures here. Thank you. I meant to show these earlier. To act as the cap kind of the building currently, this would be the color of the box, and then the white would be kind of to cap it off.
No, I apologize.
Sorry.
In the picture, it looks like there's this white line coming out at an angle from the box on the right-hand side of the box.
Oh, it might be. I think that's the arrow.
Okay, all right. That's just an artifact of the picture. Okay, thank you.
Of course, yeah.
Not a wonky antenna.
Yeah, something's sticking out. No, that's the arrow.
No other questions?
She answered my question. She showed what the materials, because that was going to be, whether it was going to be brick or what the materials are going to be made of.
Yes, we have a solid color proposed right now, and we have been we're in communication with the property owner, and he had elected for solid color. There was some communication last week with the Planning Commission as to moving forward with a brick-like pattern. And we did bring that back to the property owner. He is open to that idea, but he preferred a solid color over the brick pattern.
And would that be all in one big, well, it's obviously a box-like structure. Would it all be one piece and laid out, or it would be in different pieces?
I believe they put it together in a couple different pieces, and one side will have almost like an access gate or door for maintenance to be completed, but it will look as if it's one piece.
Okay, thank you.
John?
So what is that material?
It's an RF friendly material that allows antennas to propagate through. It's difficult to explain. It's just an RF friendly material.
So is it a plastic?
It's not a plastic. It's almost like a fiber type.
Sounds like a.
If you want to pass it around,
Yeah,
they can,
if you
they
guys
can, then
want,
they can
if
see
you'd
it.
like to feel.
Sure.
Yeah.
We get hands-on at this board.
I have a collection of these at my desk, but you guys can feel it, see what it feels like.
So I understand.
Is it really that light?
It is pretty light, yes.
So I understand the applicant would prefer it just be solid. Is that the property owner that you're
The
talking about?
property owner, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it was discussed at the planning commission whether it could be a brick pattern or not?
Yes, and if that is something that you would be looking to require, the property owner would be open to that. We have had that discussion within the week of these 2 hearings, but it is preferred solid.
And it
Solid.
sounds like the planning commission was okay with that. That's solid.
They suggested exploring the brick idea without a definitive answer on that, because I think there was some idea that they wanted to know what the property owner wanted.
And this material's been tested and be able, looking at just the weather that we had this afternoon.
Yes.
Being able to withstand
Yes.
blunt force wind and those pieces.
Yes.
Any question?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
So the property owner is a consideration. Is there no, not HOA, but like, like any guidelines with respect to the neighborhood? I simply ask because I live in the HOA across the street.
Sure.
And it wouldn't be up to the property owner to be like,
Sure.
So is there any requirement with sort of the broader community, Kentlands community itself?
I have not been working directly with the real estate side, but I know that there have been meetings held between, I guess it would be the other, like the committee of that area, and there have been no concerns brought to us at this point.
I'm asking you to basically testify on behalf of the property owner. I'm curious if you have any idea why they would have thought that a solid pattern was better than a matching brick. You can sort of sense that there's like a little bit of like,
Sure.
if brick was an option and the rest of the building is brick, why not go with brick?
So sometimes we've looked at designs like this in the past, and they don't necessarily always match up to be exactly as how the brick looks on the existing building. So it almost ends up standing out more than a solid color if it didn't match identically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That was one of the concerns.
New brick versus worn brick.
Sorry? New brick versus worn
versus
brick.
worn.
Right, versus antique
There are
brick.
some pretty good like artistic graphic designers with the company RayCap that we're working with for the stealth material. So it could be done properly, but that was a concern while looking at just other sites that have had the brick done.
Got it. Good.
I assume, with my vast knowledge of telecommunication systems, I don't have that. But I'm assuming that this very light material that this is solid around that is designed that way so as not to impact the signals themselves. Would a brick facade added to that have an impact on the signals?
If so, we would have to utilize the RF friendly material for the antennas to propagate through. So yes, if we were to just put a brick box, the RF would not propagate through.
Right.
So you would need some sort of a special brick-like
Exactly.
material. It wouldn't actually be brick.
Exactly.
It would be that. But
Right.
Yeah.
Painted or, yeah. Okay.
Oh. Any other questions? Okay. I would ask for additional testimony from other parties. All the other parties have left. Is there a motion to close the record?
I make a motion to close the record.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. As before, into discussion, and again, keeping in mind sort of what our scope of review is, and it's pretty consistent with what we were just discussing in the previous matter. But shall get on the record with what our thoughts are here. So,
I have limited thoughts other than the box, whether solid or otherwise, does not stick out to me. It looks natural if I didn't know that it was being added, and additional cell connectivity is a good thing.
okay, great.
No, I agree with that sentiment. It looks like a chimney, actually, if you would think. So I feel like it matches the rest of the surrounding around it, and doesn't pose anything against our conditions that I can see.
Great, thank you.
I'm supportive as well. I think if all things were equal, I'd prefer it to be brick. However, I understand that that's not a material that will work for you. And I also understand that using this material to simulate brick might be more of a, might stand out more than just the solid, which is the preference of the property owner. So I'm supportive.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Well said. And, I think about there's the, planning commission and the property owner, the community as well. I feel like those are the design people, and they have a better sense of what's necessary here. I do have one question on the conditions proposed for staff. The fourth condition is applicant is to submit final stealth, I love that, stealth materials to be approved by staff before the issuance of a telecommunications permit. What happens there? What are you approving?
Well, first of all, I didn't know how the discussion about the brick versus the flat panel was going to go. So if it was your preference that they come back with a different material, it would be something that we would review. In the past, we've had situations where we haven't had the actual panel, and they will then submit it once they do a color match, and I have taken it out to the site, held it up to the property to see if the color is, matches the building. So I would say, since I have not done that yet, I would say that condition probably can still stand, even if the final is what you all have just looked at, because it's a good thing for staff to be able to just say, yeah, this matches the building.
Feels like an additional backstop.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did that with Crown.
The last one we did,
Which
which
was Crown,
was in
right?
Lakelands, they did a brick. It
Yeah.
was a two-toned brick, and I held it, took pictures, and
Very good. Excellent. Any further discussion? Great. Is there a motion with respect to the application resolution?
Sure. I make a motion.
Here, this one's easier.
Oh, look at that.
Yep.
I make a motion that the Board of Appeals, based on the findings and conclusions outlined in the draft resolution, approves special exception BOA 10045-2025 and adopt resolution BOA 10045-2025 with the four conditions presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Excellent. The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess my only question on that is why didn't you do it a decade ago when I was a very frustrated T-Mobile
Right.
user who lives in the Lakeland?
You can always come back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's good to know. I have T-Mobile.
There you go. Exactly. Great. Anything from staff?
no, our next meeting is August 13th. I believe we will have an application by then, so hopefully I'll see you all then.
Fair warning, you will not see me.
Okay.
So we.
Thank you for the warning.
Yep. Anything else?
Nice to see a quorum here.
That's great. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
All right.